The moment Arzu Vale lost her penthouse view of the city, it felt as if the skyline itself had turned its back on her. One reckless bet, one careless laugh at a charity gala, and the woman who owned half the glass towers in the financial district was now standing in front of a modest two-bedroom house, sunlight spilling across cracked concrete, birds chirping like they had no idea her life had just tilted off its axis. She had conquered boardrooms, crushed rivals twice her age, and turned loneliness into a luxury she could afford. Yet here she was, a female billionaire forced to live with a single father she had never met, her designer suitcase resting beside a rusty mailbox that leaned as if even it was tired. Fate had never felt so personal or so humiliating. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected turns of destiny, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who loves emotional stories, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Arzu's world had always been bright and loud, filled with glass walls, constant daylight meetings, and the kind of silence that came from being alone at the top. Raised in foster homes, she had learned early that relying on others was a risk she could not afford. Success became her armor. She built Vale Dynamics from nothing but stubbornness and sleepless mornings, and by 35, her name was whispered with awe and resentment in equal measure. The bet that changed everything had been made under the warm glow of chandeliers, during a charity auction meant to raise funds for family housing. Someone joked that money could not buy humility. Arzu laughed and claimed she could live anywhere, with anyone, and still remain untouched. A philanthropist challenged her to prove it by living for 30 days in one of the charity homes, following their rules, no staff, no privileges. Pride nodded before wisdom could speak. That was how she met Rehan Malik, though not in words. She noticed him first through the open door, bent slightly as he watered plants in the small front yard, the sun reflecting off his forearms, his movements steady and unhurried. He was nothing like the men in her circles. His clothes were simple, his hair neatly cut but clearly done by himself, and there was a quiet exhaustion in his posture that spoke of long days and longer nights. Inside the house, the air smelled faintly of soap and cooked lentils, not perfume or polished wood. 2 school bags rested near the sofa, and a handmade drawing was taped to the wall, crooked but cherished. Rehan was a single father of 2 children, Ayan, who was 9, and Mira, who was 6. His wife had died 3 years earlier during childbirth complications, leaving him to juggle grief, parenthood, and a modest job as a city transport supervisor. He had agreed to the charity arrangement, not knowing who would arrive, only that the extra support would help keep the house running. When Arzu stepped inside, the children stared at her as if she had walked out of a television screen. She felt their eyes, sharp and curious, and for the first time in years, she did not know how to perform. The early days were unbearable for her. Morning sunlight poured through thin curtains instead of tinted glass. Breakfast was shared at a small table where crumbs mattered, and time was measured by school bells, not stock markets. Arzu struggled with simple routines, folding laundry, washing dishes, even waiting her turn in the bathroom. Rehan never complained, but his silence carried weight. He woke before dawn, packed lunches, walked the children to school under the clear daytime sky, then returned tired but focused. Arzu watched him from the living room, her phone locked away by the rules of the bet, her power stripped down to nothing. What unsettled her most was the children. Mira followed her around with cautious curiosity, while Ayan observed from a distance, protective and sharp beyond his years. They did not care about her wealth. They cared whether she remembered to close the gate or if she noticed when Mira scraped her knee. The house demanded presence, not prestige. During one bright afternoon, when the electricity went out and the fan fell silent, Arzu sat sweating on the floor, frustration bubbling over. Rehan calmly opened the windows, letting daylight and breeze flood in, turning inconvenience into acceptance. Something in that moment cracked her rigid worldview. As days passed, Arzu began to notice the quiet heroism in Rehan's life. He helped neighbors without asking, fixed broken taps, and attended school meetings with the patience of someone who had learned that love was a daily discipline. She learned about his wife through photographs, about how grief did not disappear but transformed into responsibility. In the daylight hours, while Rehan worked, Arzu stayed home, helping Mira with homework, walking to the market, feeling the weight of coins in her palm instead of credit cards. She felt oddly useful, and the feeling frightened her more than failure ever had. The real challenge came halfway through the bet. Veil Dynamics faced a public scandal in her absence, a hostile takeover attempt that could dismantle everything she built. News reached her through whispers, and panic surged. She wanted to leave, to reclaim control, to remind the world who she was. But the rules were clear. Breaking them meant admitting defeat. That afternoon, as sunlight painted the room gold, Ayan asked her for help with a school project about family. The word struck her like a bruise. She realized that for the first time, someone needed her not for her power but for her presence. Arzu stayed. In staying, she began to change. She woke earlier, learned the rhythm of the house, and even started cooking simple meals. Rehan noticed, not with praise, but with trust. He began leaving the children in her care during the day, and that trust weighed more than any contract she had signed. She found herself smiling more, softer, and the walls she built over decades slowly thinned. Daylight no longer felt intrusive. It felt honest. As the final week approached, the bet's end loomed like a cliff. Arzu felt torn between two worlds. One was loud, powerful, and lonely. The other was small, imperfect, and warm. She had entered the house to prove a point, but now she feared the proof she had found. On the last day, the charity representative arrived under the bright noon sun, congratulating her for completing the challenge. Rehan stood quietly, children at his sides. There were no dramatic speeches, no applause. Just a moment where Arzu realized she did not want to pack her suitcase. She returned to her empire, but she was not the same woman who left it. Arzu halted the takeover, stabilized her company, and then shocked her board by announcing a new division focused on affordable family housing. She did not do it for publicity. She did it because she now understood what a home truly meant. Weeks later, she visited Rehan's neighborhood again, this time without cameras or conditions. The children ran toward her in the daylight, and for once, she felt she belonged somewhere without earning it. Before the ending, here's a special request. Please comment where you are watching from and write one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Arzu offered Rehan a partnership, not in business, but in rebuilding community spaces, schools, and support systems for single parents. Their bond grew slowly, rooted in respect and shared silence rather than grand gestures. Love did not arrive like a storm. It arrived like daylight, steady and warm, filling the cracks left by loss and pride. Arzu learned that strength could be gentle, and Rehan learned that accepting help was not weakness. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can change even the hardest lives, please like this video, share it, and engage with it so more people can feel this message. Sometimes, the greatest bets we lose are the ones that teach us how to truly live.